The next item on the agenda is really mine. It was misstated as the Director of Planning and Zoning. Basically, this is a discussion about what our schedule will look like over the next several months with regard to oil and gas, and I've provided for each of you a printed sheet here that I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'd like to hit the highlights. So on the 25th, the Planning and Zoning Commission passed on 2 ordinances to the Board of County Commissioners. We can choose between those recommendations. We can choose to amend the recommendations, or we can consider other options. So to do that, and after reviewing the documentation and legal posting requirements with the county attorney, we're proposing the following schedule. We have a work session scheduled for the 18th of October. I also just want to remind you that at 4 o'clock that afternoon, we also have a work session scheduled with our lobbyist from DC, MMO. So at that meeting, we're going to have some presentations by the Citizens Working Group and New Mexico Tech. They have an update, I believe, on their risk assessment. So after the 18th, we'd like to publish the outcome of the 18th meeting on the 19th. Some of these times are kind of critical with regard to what we have to post legally and what action we can take with regard to that. So on November 1st, we're going to have our regular commission meeting. There will be no oil and gas discussion at that meeting. November 8th, there'll be a request for a motion to discuss the ordinance and vote to post for final action. So we will have had conversation about the ordinance on the 18th after the presentations, and we will have conversation about the ordinance again on the 8th. Hopefully out of that meeting we will propose something to move forward for final action. And we'll publish what comes out of that meeting on November 9th. We will cancel the November 15th meeting, and the reason we're doing that is it's too close to the other meetings, and so we need a big enough window of time between meetings to be able to publish information, and so that the public is advised on how we're proceeding. So in lieu of the 15th meeting, we will have a meeting on November 29th. It'll be primarily an agenda for oil and gas. There'll be public comment at that meeting. There will be a request for a motion for discussion and a vote on a final ordinance. On the 30th, we'll publish the outcome of the meeting of the 29th. If for some reason we don't take final action on the 29th, we will have December 13th. We will move on that meeting to take a request for a motion for discussion and vote on final ordinance. If that were the case, there would also be public comment at that meeting. So with that schedule idea, commissioners, do you have any thoughts? Everybody okay with that?
Mr. Chairman, on the 18th, the work session, excuse me, the work session agenda, is New Mexico Tech, have they committed to coming here to do a briefing on the supplemental report?
I understand they are.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, yes, New Mexico Tech will be here on October 8th to present October 18th to present supplemental information.
Okay, and I see OCD on here, may provide a white paper on the subject. Are we not sure OCD is coming?
They will not be here.
So OCD will not be here.
They'll not be present, but they have committed to provide a white paper on the topic.
When will we get that white paper? Will we get it on that day, or will we have time to review it?
I'm hoping to get a lot of this information up front. In fact, if you read some of the rest of the text that I didn't, as to what our options are, is how we move documents forward. If you'll read the first paragraph, if you want me to go over it, I'll be glad to go over it, but I was assuming that you could read it. but if you like, I'll cover it.
Hold on, let me just.
Or let me cover it. So we have the recommendation from the 18th, which includes the 2 ordinances which have been submitted. So we're going to call this the Citizens Working Group Science Committee version 3. We also have an amended version that we have received of the Citizens Working Group Ordinance Committee. And we're going to call that Citizen Working Group OC version 3. So there's also an effort underway to take a look at the science ordinance and the baseline ordinance and see if there's some melding of that would make sense that we could look at. It doesn't mean that we have to decide on it. It would just be something that we would have in front of us to compare.
And who is going to be doing the hybrid on that? Is that the staff or is that someone else?
Makita and our county attorney have been involved in working on that. Okay.
So we just had the P&Z look at 4 ordinances, correct, Mr. Chairman?
Correct.
And they decided to send up only 2, correct?
Correct.
So I'm a little confused here. Why?
Well, let me go back to the second sentence on this document. We can choose to accept, first of all, those are recommendations to the commission. We can choose to accept those recommendations. That'll be part of our discussion on the 18th after the presentations. We can say, hey, we only want to focus on these 2, and that would, then that's what we would focus on. We can choose to amend their recommendation, or we could choose any other option that we might choose as a commission. Okay? Now, I'm not suggesting that we do that. I'm just saying that legally that is what's open to us.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I just want to point out no action shall be taken on October the 18th.
Correct.
It's a discussion. And so
Okay.
then on the following meeting, action can be taken as far as what would like to be moved forward for final action.
Right. On the 8th, on November 8th, we would be making suggestions as to what we would post and move forward. So we would actually have, hopefully, a couple of hours of conversation on the 18th, maybe up to 3 or 4 hours of conversation on the 8th, and hopefully at that point in time, after having all this information in front of us and all the information that we've gathered over the past 2 years and going through this process, we would have something to move forward to post for an action to vote on it. Did that help?
Well, here's a little confused because there's 2 ordinances that were set up, but I remember last year, Mr. Chairman, and Commissioner Eichwald probably remembers it as well, maybe Commissioner Holden Rhodes, but last year when we looked at the ordinance that came from the P&Z, which, by the way, I think these ordinances need to be changed by names. They need a different nomenclature, either ordinance number 1 or ordinance number 2. I think that's fair. We had a work session, we had a work session where we looked at potentially, like the Heil ordinance, took the Stoddard ordinance, and you added some things in there at was it a work session or a county commission meeting? I can't remember.
I think it was a county commission meeting because we amended it and then we had to move it on.
We had to roll
another.
back, yeah, we had to do the thing.
But understand what you are talking about now is what would be slated for our conversation on the 18th as to what we go through with these various documents that we will have in front of us.
Again, I just want to make sure I'm on the same page as you.
Good.
There was no other version submitted from any other group besides the 2 that the P&Z sent forward. Is that correct?
Correct.
And there's no other ordinance out there going to be submitted in addition to those unless it's some type of...
It will be up to us to deal with any amendments or changes to that, etc.
Okay, is Director Springfield here?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Director Springfield is on vacation, and so he's not present today. But if you have any questions,
Is
I've
his
been engaged.
deputy here? Makita Hill?
I don't believe
What
so.
are you asking?
Okay. I'm just asking if Director Springfield or Makita Hill
No,
are
he is
here.
not.
Or Makita Hill? No, they're not.
Because, again, this item was just our scheduling of the time
Okay.
to talk about it, and you're talking about what we're going to talk about when we
No,
get to
I'm
this.
just asking to make sure that, I want to make sure that we validate what the P&Z did, and they send up 2 ordinances, and there's no other ordinance either from staff or
Understand,
industry or
again, it's not
CWG.
validating. There's, what they forwarded was a recommendation.
I
It's up
understand.
to us to take that and...
I got it. All I'm asking, I'm stating, is I want to make sure no one else is going to submit another ordinance, whether it's industry, staff, citizens working group, any county commissioner. We're
No,
gonna
but
work with what we have.
understand that as we review this, if you look down into the second section there as to how we might review this, our approach might be to look at each article. The ordinances are broken up into articles, and we
Mhm.
look at this article, and we look at the article information that we would have from these 2 ordinances, and also the fact that there's been some updated ordinances that you could draw from. You will have that information if you wish to bring it to the table.
Okay. So the people that who decided on the invitee list here? Who invited New Mexico Tech?
The discussion was between Director Springfield, myself, and our county manager.
Okay. Who invited OCD? The same people?
Correct.
Who invited the CWG? Why are there 2 what's this SC? So
We
the
invite-
CWG SC is that going to be staff presenting that, or is that going to be CWG? I'm not.
You're going to have the ordinance committee is going to present their perspective as to why you should consider their items.
Would that be the Feldblum group?
I'm not sure who will speak for that group, but that is the group that would have 30 minutes to present their ideas.
And who is presenting the baseline ordinance?
I
or
believe
version 3?
Makita will be presenting that.
Okay. So we invited the Citizens Working Group. We invited New Mexico Tech. Staff will present. OCD will not be here, but they're going to present a white paper. Did we invite anyone from industry or any other environmental group?
We have not.
Are we going to?
If you feel that we should, we've invited them before, and Namoga has turned us down. So,
Okay. All right. Thank you.
okay. Any other comments? Okay, good. Let's. Now we have comments from the public on other items. Alan.
I've been here so often, you know me without my first name.
Yeah, how about that?
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on process, and I know some of you are think process is very important. So do I. My name's Alan Friedman, and I live in Placitas. And Chairman Heil and Commissioners, thank you. When earlier this year the Citizens Working Group was established to develop an oil and gas ordinance and protect our water, the County Commission asked that the Planning and Zoning Commission review the ordinance before it was passed up to the County Commission for a vote. Clearly, the process did not work out that simply because the CWG developed 2 ordinances, the Science Team Ordinance and the Ordinance Team Ordinance. I believe although the Planning and Zoning Commission meant well, it was unable to do the ordinance vetting that you had requested. They didn't hold informational meetings needed to listen to the authors of each ordinance, to call in experts to get outside legal opinion. They punted. They sent up the Citizens Working Group Science Ordinance and bypassed the Ordinance Team Ordinance. Over the last 6 months, as you had asked, many county citizens on the ordinance team spent literally thousands of hours working on an oil and gas ordinance for the county. We held listening meetings in Peña Blanca, the East Mountain, 3 meetings in Cuba. We conferred with the Sandoval County tribes and pueblos, talked to the insurance industry, experts on noise. We've gotten outside legal input from the University of New Mexico. I personally consulted with the previous OCD director, current and retired OCD geologist, scientist at New Mexico Tech, a former EPA Water Division director, a retired petroleum engineers and petroleum geologists. We read many papers and talked with their authors. All of us had done a lot of work for the county. So on October 18th, the County Commission will hold a workshop on the Sandoval County Oil and Gas Ordinance. I understand, Chairman Heil, that the ordinance team will be asked to make a presentation as well as the science team whose ordinance has been passed up. So I did say each of the teams has taken a different approach to the ordinances they wrote. So you will have good choices, and I just ask you to keep an open mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Gregory Burkmark?
I don't have anything to speak about other than just to ask a question.
Sir, we don't want to miss a word of what you're saying. So you need to step forward and let's hear it on the microphone. Thank you for being here.
Can you hear me?
Yep,
Okay.
I can. Is everybody else here?
All right. I just wanted to ask, the document that you're reading off of for the future scheduling, is that available to everyone to maybe get this evening or on the website?
Yeah. I suppose we could put it up there. Sure.
But I mean, pass out
Yeah.
paper-wise.
Well, I don't have mine's all scribbled up, so.
Thank you. I'll make some copies.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, moving on to comments from the commissioners. Commissioners, do you have any comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Block.
I kind of wish the other people would have stayed regarding oil and gas, because I just want to say a couple things. And I think we can all relate to this with some of the emails that we've read. But, we did vote to, I don't know if sponsor County Attorney Hammer is the right word or not, but there's no way I was going to vote no on citizens, again, under their constitutional rights to assemble, to put together an ordinance for their government. And I'd like to thank all those members, Mr. Chairman, that spent hundreds of hours, thousands of hours, driving hundreds of miles around the county on the Citizens Working Group. I think they did a great job in what they were charged to do. I also want to thank, Mr. Chairman, our P&Z commissioners. As you know, you're on the P&Z commission for the city of Rio Rancho, if I'm correct. And our I'm sorry?
Oh, I asked you if that was, I thought you asked me if that was correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And our P&Z commissioners, they don't get paid. They volunteer to serve. And by the way, these 7 individuals on the P&Z, they take a lot of heat and a lot of unnecessary heat and a lot of name calling, a lot of personal attacks in order to serve their county. And I find some of those comments, and I know the other commissioners have seen those comments. Same thing with the county manager and county attorney and Director Springfield and Ms. Perez back there. I find some of those comments from the, I'll call them the radicals, quite disgusting and quite baseless with their accusations that every commissioner up here and every P&Z commissioner was corrupt. I think, but again, that is their right to say that, and I will support that right.